Welcome to the Long Road Show. I'm Chris Roberts, and I'm here with Beth and Rick Bendel from Matt. We're talking about flubbing and everything, but I have the flubbies today. Monadnock Aviation, and you were recently the host of an air show at the air station, but at the airport. But before we get on to that, I want to talk about a little bit about yourself. What did you do before you came to Keene?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us here today.
You're welcome.
I guess we have varied backgrounds. Rick and I were both military officers. Rick was in the Marine Corps and I was in the Navy. After we got out of that, we both became federal law enforcement officers. Rick worked a lot of narcotics and gangs, and I worked pedophiles. When I got out of that, I had a real estate investment business. And after that is when we came here.
How did you left the Marine Corps? What were you in the Marine Corps? What was your background in the Marine Corps?
I was both enlisted and officer. I did 4.5 years as a combat engineer, enlisted. I got my commission after college and became a communications officer for 4 years.
Well, combat engineer was the best. You know, we can forget you for being communication. But as you can see, as I started the show off, I'm not very good at communicating sometimes. So your specialty in the military, in the Navy?
I was an intelligence officer.
So that's why you get married. He needed some intelligence, right?
I had to help him out.
How long have you been into Keene? Why did you come to Keene?
We've been here about just over 2 years now. I'll let Rick explain why we came here. He's better at it.
You know, about 4 years before we came here, we started really analyzing our life, and we wanted to figure out why we were going in the direction that we were. We had great careers, but we were missing some things in our life. And we realized that we needed a better place to raise our kids. We needed a better place that didn't have the stress. And it was just a better family environment. And so we looked around all along the East Coast and came to Keene on a vacation and really loved it here and made the decision to move here.
I don't think a lot of people realize the stress that goes on for the children, especially if you're in a military background or you're in a undercover narcotics or law enforcement. It's not like being a local policeman coming home every single day. You can be gone for long periods of time, pack up and go in short notices. It's really stressful on the families.
Very much so. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you could be called. You could go out of town. You could, be on a detail for 18 hours. You just don't exactly know when you're coming home. It's tough for a family.
Because I know when I was at Camp Lejeune, I was on air alert, and there was a couple of times I was called out in the middle of the night, gone, come back, and my wife says, "Where you been?" And I said, "I haven't been any place." It's tough to get along.
Yeah, very much so.
So you now own and you operate as a Monadnock Aviation out at the Keene Airport. What got you into the aviation background if you're communications and you're in intelligence?
Well, when I first met Beth, she was going through private pilot training. And that intrigued me that she was doing that, and I realized I needed to keep up with her. So I went back to Okinawa. I started flying. She continued her flight training, and eventually we became general aviation pilots. She got her license in Japan, and so did I.
Was that male macho ego got to keep up?
It might have been.
He was intimidated.
It's worked out well, though.
That was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. And since then, we've added ratings. I've added an instrument rating, a commercial pilot's license, flight instructor certificate. And we've just always been very interested in aviation.
So what kind of services does your company offer out to the general public out at the airport?
We have flight school, so we provide flight training from somebody just starting all the way up to somebody becoming a flight instructor and instrument rating. We rent aircraft. We provide scenic flights for people who aren't interested in learning to fly but maybe want to go and see what it's like from above and see the landscape.
Picture taken in the fall?
Exactly. Although everybody thinks foliage is the best time, I disagree. Winter time is the really pretty time to go, in my opinion. What do you think?
I think all times are great, and each season has their own advantage.
We're going to get ready to roll about a 10-minute segment of the air show. But before we get to that, I've been in the Marine Corps stationed at El Toro, Tustin, and Miramar. I've been involved in a number of air shows. It doesn't matter how small they are or how large. It takes a lot of hard work. And sometimes we have to take 2 to 3 years in advance just to plan on getting a single performer there. And, you know, being a Marine officer, Naval officer, you know, sometimes you're a little arrogant, you look forward. But what gave you the idea that not only could you pull it off, but pull it off successfully?
Well, you know, we had been, owning the FBO, we had been talking with a number of people that talked about, as children, going to air shows in Keene. And we realized that that was missing. And it became very obvious that we needed to do something about that. So Beth and I talked about it, and she took the ball and ran with it.
It was frustrating. Sometimes we tell people that we owned the fixed base operation, the FBO at the airport, and the response would be, "There's an airport? Where?" And so it became very obvious to us that we've got such a great airport, such a great facility here in Keene, and so many people in the area don't even know about it, and certainly don't come out and use it and have no contact with it. So for those reasons, I think we decided an air show would be perfect. Get people out and show off the airport.
Because that's one of the things with a lot of airports. Airport sewage treatment plants. You could be the Keene sewage treatment plant or the Cincinnati airport. It's amazing how many of the airports are not into the city that bears their name.
Right.
And so I guess that would be quite confusing to a lot of people. Well, Keene doesn't have an airport. It's the Swansea airport. But in actuality, it is the Keene airport, but it happens to be located in Swansea.
Right.
So we're going to get ready. We're going to start rolling the clip, and I hope that people enjoy some of these things at the air show. Me, I was really totally amazed by the wing walker. Yeah.
She was great.
She
Yeah.
was great.
back up on his leader's wing. It's a unique American pastime of the air show. We're certainly lucky to have one back in Keene today as part of Keene Airport Aviation Day and Air Show 2010. Just moments away now from the Yak Attack. Our next act is the pilots and the nuances of fighter tactics in general flight. Now is the smoke on, and hopefully your camera's out.
Oh yeah, that's where they have the training over there, yeah. Yeah, over near Gampy's there.
Yep.
Opportunity to introduce our ground control. From Alabama, he's an imagery intel analyst with 99 free fall parachute jumps, Sergeant Alan Bachman. Our first jumper from Fort Washington, the Signals Intelligence Analyst with 1,222 free fall parachute.
Okay, we're supposed to stay over here, but still go over the side to the big lake. Since we're behind.
To the end of the road.
You know what I don't understand is when we look at that lady, where in the world did she get the courage the first time to get on that? Hey, come on up here. I'll just strap on and we'll just go for a fly. You stand outside. I just don't understand how anybody could do that.
She's a ball of fire. She was something else. We were really thrilled to have her with us that day.
Because it was a real surprise. You would not expect someone like that in a small air show. You would expect her in one of those big El Toro or Peas
She's
type
a big
air
name performer. She's a national performer, performs for Red Bull Air Races. So yeah, we were thrilled to have her with us that day.
Yeah, because I had my grandchildren. They were completely in awe. They didn't want to go any place, and especially when she came into low level and she was flipped over.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was quiet.
So were we. It was fantastic.
As we go on to look at some of the other performers there, the Air Force C-130, that was a National Guard from Rhode Island, correct? I think it was right?
It was, yes.
That was jam-packed. You couldn't get in or out. People were trying to push people outside the doors so they could get the look in them. All the airmen in there, they were polite, they were knowledgeable, and they got along great with the public.
They did a fantastic job. I knew we had a hit when we saw families just running, hand in hand running to get on board the C-130. We knew that it was cool.
You know, kids like that, you know.
Yeah.
And the
Adults
old guys too.
Yeah.
There was a number of older veterans reminiscing, and some of them from Vietnam and everything, saying, well, this isn't the C-130 that I was in Vietnam. World of difference, much more upgrade, better upgrade, baby avionics. So right before we went to the triplane or the biplane with the wing walker, we went through a bunch of them, the Wide, the Fenton, Project Keene. How did you tie in the nonprofit organizations with the air show?
Well, we knew that we needed to provide food at the air show, and rather than hiring people to come in and make a lot of money off of the show, we thought that there are a lot of organizations right here in our community who could serve the food, fill the need for it, and yet keep the profits and use those profits to make their organization stronger and publicize their own mission and in turn help the community with that. you
How much money did we think we were talking about raising for the nonprofits on just about 4.5 hours, 5 hours?
We opened the gates at 10, and because of the tornado warning that was coming, we started shutting down about 3, so what's that, 5 hours?
About 5 hours. Yeah.
They took in, we don't have an exact number, but they took in over $20,000 in 5 hours.
That's all donations from sales, so that was a hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, they kept everything. We didn't charge them anything to be at the show that day. Everything they took in, they left with.
The other part, about how many people, because the roads were jam-packed. The airport's, it's really in a lousy location. You only have it basically equivalent of a 2-lane road to get into the airport. But how many people made the airport?
About
the show?
6,500 people came out. Of those, about half were under 12 and about half were over 12.
And so you just charged, was it $5 for people 12 and over?
That's right.
And that was really to cover the cost of the police, the fire, the porta potties, that type of
The
stuff.
performers.
The performers.
Yeah, putting on an air show is a really expensive proposition. So the $5 was literally just to defray some of the costs.
What were some of your, we'll go off a little bit, but what were some of the big sponsors that really helped? Because you can't do it without community sponsors, plain and simple. And I know this is public access, but we have individuals in the community that went out of their way to help the community, and this is a community event. So I have no problem with you addressing some of those sponsors and how they helped.
Sure. Well, Fenton Family Dealerships, first and foremost, we could not have put on the air show without them. They were fantastic. They put up people, finances, time, thought, everything. They were great co-sponsors.
Clark Distributors really came through for us.
Absolutely.
And they were just a pleasure to work with and really showed their support.
And it shows that Clark Distributors is much more their community involved because there was no beer sold on the site. So they helped out in a lot of ways
Very much
that
so.
people would never have connected them with.
Absolutely. They sure did. In fact, they sponsored the Black Daggers, the parachute team, yeah, as well as provided drinks out at the air show that day. Yeah.
We also had the generators were from Powers Generator. They were fantastic. Really a pleasure to work with, and came through when we needed them.
The yellowish orange, excuse me, the Navy planes, kind of like the old World War II type planes. Where did they come out of? Because I saw Miramar. I had been stationed at Miramar, I saw some of the old naval bases tattooed on them, stenciled on their sides.
In the T6 Texans, I
Yeah.
think is what you're talking
Yeah.
about. They came with the P-51 out of New York. And I believe that's the Murphy family.
Yes.
So that could have been the group that was about 4:30, because we were going towards Monadnock Marketplace, and it was a group of like 4 airplanes in a really tight formation flying up probably northwest.
Maybe. I think they left a little bit early. As soon as weather started getting questionable, I think they
Did
They
you have
headed back
did you
to
have
New
some
York.
air performance from Canada? That may be-
Sure we did. Dan Fortin
Uh-huh.
in the Yak.
Right.
Yeah,
he
the
was
Yak
in
Attack.
Yeah. He was
yeah,
part of
he
Yak
was,
Attack, right?
He was one of the 2 aircraft in Yak Attack, and he came from Canada to do this performance.
And Carol Pilon, the wing walker, she's from Canada.
So, what are you looking forward for next year?
Well, we don't want to let too much out of the
True.
bag.
Yeah,
Obviously,
it's
we're
always
still
tough with air shows. Yeah.
we're still in the planning process. We don't have specific performers lined up yet. It's a little bit too early to start booking people. But what we're looking at is ways that we can make the air show appeal to more people. How can we entertain the kids while mom or dad are looking at the planes? How can we entertain dad while mom's looking at the planes? Just how do we make it a day that appeals to the entire family?
I'm not going to tell you, Chris, we learned so much this last air show, and I think that it's going to get better and better as time goes on. And we're committed to making this happen every year.
Because to me, I think the air show was a great success. It really highlighted Keene and Swansea. And that'll lead me into the other question. How was the relationship working between the city of Keene and Swansea and your organization? Because in the past, Swansea and Keene didn't always get along very well when we were talking about the airport.
Well, you certainly couldn't tell, given our track record with them. They were absolutely fantastic. Great relationship with both communities, easy to work with, and I think that they really they showed their enthusiasm for this air show.
Absolutely. We had to go through a series of protocol meetings where the fire departments, the police departments, administrators, and so forth are there just to make sure that what we're providing is a safe event for the community. And those meetings they were great. I mean, you could really tell that people wanted to come together and make the air show happen and wanted it to be a great event. If there was strife between the city and the town, we were just unaware of it.
Because when I first retired and moved back to Keene, one of the big questions was the helicopter training school. That we were always having complaints about helicopters, and I did not hear one single noise complaint or any complaint whatsoever about the air show, the noise put on for the air show, except maybe ooh and ah.
I think that the response from the community is overwhelmingly supportive, and I think that it really shows that Keene needs something like this. I think the attendance itself is very indicative that Keene and the surrounding communities want this, and the feedback that we've gotten has been extremely positive.
By having the air show and putting Keene back on the map, you have a contractual relationship with the city of Keene, so you rent part of the space at the airport, correct?
Correct.
And so if I have an airplane now and I go, oh, now I hear about Keene, or Keene has an air show and I want to fly in, and I gas up, there's a percentage of that sales that goes to the city of Keene, correct?
That's correct.
So it's really in Keene's best interest to make the airport as most active and productive as possible, because they take, put it bluntly, a percentage of the cut of the sales.
That airport has the potential to bring so much revenue to Keene and Swansea and the surrounding area. Like you said, not only do the pilots come in and gas up their airplanes, which the city gets money from, but remember, they rent the cars, they go into town, they stay at the hotels, they eat at the restaurants, they shop at the stores. So the pilots that come in really bring a lot of revenue to the city.
And guys, in a lot of ways, you're being a little modest. You do more than the air show. What about these poker runs and these barbecues? And I heard that you bring some school children out there too.
Well, I think we try to do a number of things. I guess we do support poker runs, which is basically pilots go to 5 different airports, and at each airport they pick a card. When they get to their destination airport, whoever has the best hand wins the prizes. So we've been involved in a couple of poker runs.
Chris, it's easy to show your enthusiasm when you really
Yep.
love aviation, and you've got such a great airport as we do. It's easy to be inviting. It's easy to ask people to come in and give them reasons to come in. The kids, it's such a delight to be able to take children out there and to show them what aviation is like. And
Did you have the children from the kindergartens from Jonathan Daniels? Were those the ones
From
that came,
Simons.
from Simon that
Right.
came out?
They study a unit on transportation, and at the end of their air transportation unit every year, or for the last 2 years, they've come out. And we've given them a tour of our hangar, talked about airplanes, put them in the airplanes, let them actually sit in them. And then there's a surprise at the end. We do candy drops for them, where we drop about 20 pounds of candy from the airplane onto the ramp, and then the kids can all run out on the ramp and get it. And boy, you have never seen so many smiling faces, and they just had no idea what was coming. They were just overwhelmed with candy joy.
And for most of them, that's their first exposure to aviation, and we want it to be such an overwhelmingly positive event. And so it's so easy to do that, and so enjoyable.
And the barbecues, when every couple of weekends you have a barbecue?
We do. First and third Saturday of every month, and the purpose is just pilot camaraderie, to give pilots a place to go and do hangar flying and see each other's planes and talk about issues that they've had. Also to introduce non-pilots to aviation, people who are kind of interested, don't really know how to start, maybe want to come out but don't really know what to do.
Do you work with the Civil Air Patrol, the kids and the youngsters in the Civil Air Patrol?
We do.
And I don't think people realize that the Civil Air Patrol is still pretty active. Growing up as kids, it was always pretty active, but it's kind of like people don't pay too much attention to the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or Civil Air Patrol, but these are all pretty important to these kids. They're type of character building type organizations.
Very much so. Civil Air Patrol meets at the main terminal every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. And you talk about character building. There's a couple of Air Force Academy cadets that have come out of the Civil Air Patrol just last year that have really excelled at the academy. And it's really shown the value of Civil Air Patrol to Keene.
And the Civil Air Patrol is pretty important in safety and lost down planes. And can you explain a little bit more to me on that part?
Sure. Civil Air Patrol's mission is to locate and recover crew members that have been involved in aircraft crashes, accidents, and incidents. And through electronic means, they're able to locate aircraft. They put people on the ground in search and rescue missions along with aircraft, and they're designed to locate downed crew members.
And one of the other ones is pilot safety briefings and other education that you're now putting on at the airport.
We are. Our business as the fixed base operator, we provide flight training, we provide fuel services to jets and so forth. But one thing that I think that is very, very important is to provide educational opportunities for pilots. Once you get your pilot's license, you're not done. There's constant and continual learning and going over the procedures and sharpening your skills. And so once a month we provide safety seminars on a whole variety of topics for free for pilots to come in and just provide an opportunity to keep on top of their game.
So basically, since you've been here, it's just not pumping out fuel. You've really broadened the base of operations, no pun intended, of what the organization is capable of doing. It just isn't, like I said, pumping fuel, washing down a plane, and putting some people or passenger cargo on a plane and send them on their way.
There's so much an FBO can do to support the community, support the pilots, and we're trying to do all that. We're trying to make our business the way that we've liked other FBOs. As pilots, we go in, we see other FBOs, and we emulate the good things, and we leave the bad things. So it was easy for us to take our experience as pilots and to bring in the good things, and to create a friendly FBO, one that's dedicated to the community, dedicated to the pilots. It just makes it, it's easy when you see great FBOs.
Because to me, they're so important. Again, you being in the military, I being in the military, you fly into some of these bases. If it isn't there, it's a horrible,
Right.
wasted experience. And you've got some airports you never ever want to go back again to.
Very
Absolutely.
much so. And the FBO makes or breaks an airport, and we understand that.
To some extent, we consider ourselves an unofficial welcoming committee of Keene. I mean, anybody who flies through that airport, flies into that airport, comes through our FBO and typically sees either Rick or myself or both.
And when you look at the long range in Keene, where Keene's location is, especially I-91 and the airport, we've got the different motels, whether it's not the Ramada, the Best West Inn or the Marriott or EF Lane or Holiday Express. It'd be almost a perfect place for a lot of people to fly in, stay at one of our local hotels, maybe go to a show or whatever, take their family skiing and come back at night, because there's a lot of families who want to go skiing, but they don't want to have their kids around the activity at some of these ski lodges. And bingo, you can fly in, rent a car, spend the night here, go skiing all day, come back. So it would be a win-win on a wide range of organizations and businesses in this area.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So put the shoe on it. What would you like, if you could go to the city or whatever, or the state, what would you like us to do to help the airport grow?
Well, you know, they had talked about a technical college at one time. We have no idea where that stands. We'd love to be a part of that process.
But that's right now, that's a money issue. As we know, a state is getting less and less money. And so putting that college, that cost quite a bit of money. Was it Daniel Webster or the other one, Emory, that was on the East Coast, has gone out of business or in their last class?
Yep, Daniel Webster has ceased pilot training, which is an absolute shame. I think that if you're in the pipeline to become a Daniel Webster pilot, they'll allow you to graduate, but they're not taking any more new students.
But that causes a big problem, because if you're in the pipeline and each year is less and less,
Right.
how do you get a quality education if you're the last 3 or 4 people?
I think that that's a great question, and I'm not so sure that they've got a great answer for that.
So how would you like to be more involved, the city or the state or the county being more involved?
I don't know the answer to that, Chris.
It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I mean, yeah.
Well, you know, right now we're looking at building another hangar, and we've talked with John McLean. We're in the process of determining what the city needs in terms of terminal space, office space, and so forth. And I think that there's a good opportunity for a public-private partnership there to create hangar space, to create a new terminal, and to really develop this airport into what it could be. Just because the technical college is not actively pursuing Keene doesn't mean that they're the last people that could ever think of Keene as a potential base of operations. You know, look at CNS.
Yep.
The potential or the impact on CNS operations that the airport has. And I question whether CNS would be here if it weren't for the airport. Certainly there are other businesses out there that are in the same position that are looking for a great base of operations. I think that Keene has so much going for it. But I think that sometimes the airport is not marketed actively. And that's one of the things I'd like to see the city is really get involved with marketing that airport, letting people know that there's land available, letting people know that there's hangar space available.
Right now, I'm part of the airport marketing subcommittee because I'm on the airport commission. That report should be coming out in the next couple of months. Wow. That will then go to the AAC committee and then up through to the city council. But I'm glad when you talked about how everything went seamlessly with the city and Swansea, because one of those issues. It's in Swansea. Some of the taxes go to Swansea. Some the Keene city doesn't pay on certain points of taxes, but all sides really have to work together, both entities, the private part, to do what's best for the airport, because they will all benefit if they do it. Otherwise, most people don't, I guess they don't understand, is the federal government has put a couple of $1 million worth of improvements into that airport over the last couple of years, and they're still putting more improvements into it. And if we can't find a way to make that airport more productive, the money's going to stop. And the last thing we want to do is have an airport like Victorville out in California, where you have all these weeds growing up between the cracks, and you have coyotes and wild animals and deers going across it. That would be an asset that would be a total waste to lose.
Well, we absolutely agree with you. You know, Keene Airport is a diamond in the rough, and we certainly understand that with some hard work and some perseverance, that we can make this airport a phenomenal place for corporate operations, private operations. I don't know that we're ever going to get commercial air service back, nor should we hang our hat on that, but certainly there are plenty of opportunities where Keene and the surrounding communities can really benefit and grow from a thriving airport.
Yes, because a thriving airport, yeah, if you look at it more and more, passenger airlines is not going to bring money into a lot of communities. In a lot of cases, they're kind of like football stadiums, baseball stadiums. The communities give great tax benefits to bring them in there, but when they look at services and other ones, they suck a lot out of the community. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking in a professional way, like for example, CNS is not sucking anything out of the community. Every time they buy services, they're putting resources back into the community.
Absolutely.
And so we have to find a way to maximize the use of that airport. And I think with you and your wife and the other people out there, the mindset is there. We're going to do our best to make it a productive, valuable piece of property.
Sure. And we're very excited to see that report from the Development Committee. And Beth and I are committed, along with the rest of the Monadnock Aviation staff, we're committed to make a thriving and prosperous airport.
And so I want to thank you for your time being here. And I'm sorry about my bumblings today.
Well, we're thrilled to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What we're going to do is I'm going to finish up with about a 10-15 minute kind of time filler, answer some of the other questions and some of the things that we had last week before we get to the end of the show. And two of the things I want to start off with concerning last week was a number of veterans issues. One of the things with the veterans issue that's going on right now is with the new health care law. Under the new health care law, veterans, we have a number of veterans who are on Medicaid. We have a number of veterans who are on Medicaid, basically people who got disabled in the real world, civilian world, and due to their disability they can't work and they qualify for Medicaid. And so what the new the new health care law is, in New Hampshire, they're trying to transfer about 1,000 of the veterans who are on Medicare into the VA system. You'll have to give up your Medicare benefits to go into the VA system. And that will then save the state and the federal government money because it costs less for you to use the VA system than it does Medicare. But a lot of the questions that are unanswered right now is, if you're on Medicare, your family's also on Medicare. The VA doesn't take care of the family. What happens then? There's a lot of doctors who don't take Medicare. So if you have a primary care physician and you give up that doctor, that physician, to go to VA and you no longer like the VA, you have to go and find another doctor. Here in Keene, if you have a doctor at the clinic and you're not feeling very well, you can call up in the morning, get an urgent care appointment, probably get in the same day or the next day with a day follow-up. If you're in the VA system and you got to go to White River Junction, you have to drive all the way to White River Junction and sit there, get seen, and then you'll get a follow-on appointment. So there's a lot of things that are coming up. So I would recommend that any of the veterans who are on Medicaid and they're looking at the opportunity and being trying to convince to turn over to the VA system, you need to think long and hard. You need to ask a lot of questions of what is going to be best for me, what is going to be best for my family. There's a good possibility if you switch over to the VA system, you'll never be able to switch back to the Medicare system. And so you don't want to make that tough choice and make the bad decision. Because if you go and look at the Medicare system, which is for 65 and over, we have a lot of veterans who are now can't get primary care physicians, so they have to use the VA. And like I stated last week is, why should a veteran who lives in Tanglewood have to drive all the way to Wright River Junction for a blood test? A World War II veteran, why? For a Kuderman check, he should be able to be seen at the local hospital, the local clinic, because he's on Medicare. I was getting mixed up, Medicare. So just because something's available, you really have to spend a lot of time and look at it, because the consequences could be very seriously. The other part, as we go ready to finish up, is some of the economic games and numbers that we like to play with the individuals. One we'll do is, here's the number on single-family housing starts in state of New Hampshire. In May of 2005, we had 763 new housing starts. In July of 2007, 448. In January of 2009, 65. And in May of 2010, 206. Yes, why do these numbers look? Well, when they go in and you get the report, it stated that year over year, it was 7.9% increase. Over the last month over month increase was 38.3%. So people are going, why is the economy? It doesn't seem like the economy is doing really well, but the numbers say it's really well. Well, but the numbers last month was 73% off the high, or even 54% off the somewhat high in 2007, or 317% off the low. So if I'm a politician, well, yeah, I'm a politician, but if I'm a politician or I'm a newscaster and I want to paint the story which way, I can pick any number, and I can pick a number that's going to make me look good. And so, again, we as people, we need to go and ask, what is this number coming from? And that's one of the things. If the high was at 763, I would much rather be 50% below the high than 300% above the low. And again, most of us didn't take statistics in class, and most of us just slept through class, but certain numbers, they make a big difference. The other one right now is the question, as business people, you'd love this. The state of New Hampshire ended the year with a budget surplus. And how did we do that? Well, we took $80 million of next year's projected revenue, and we just transferred into this year's budget. You can do that legally. I know all businesses can do that. Enron, WorldCom, they do it all the time. Then they go and had some people pay $25 million of their bills early. We know that some businesses, well, you know what, my numbers don't look good, so I'll delay payment so to make it look good. We can get other people to bring in their, pay their bills earlier. And so now we have a surplus for the end of the year. Now, but we just started a new year, so now we're going to have, that's a different problem. We'll worry about that $80 million that we took and moved over, that $48 million that we were promised to get, but the promise fell through. So it's $128 million. That's something that we don't have to worry about right now. But that's how we in government do it. I'm pretty sure most of the people don't do it that way with their private checking account or on their credit cards or in their private business, because we have late fees and penalty fees and all kinds of crap that we have to pay if we decide to do that. And finally, yeah, I have to apologize. I'm not doing very good today. My wife's uncle passed away over the weekend, and so we're going through all the the funeral arrangements, and it's kind of tough. It's so a number of the people who will know him, Monsignor Pichette. So basically, his funeral will be Thursday, and so if anybody knows Father Pichette, he was at St. Bernard's, St. Bernadette, but he married me and my wife at the church down there, and he served there a number of times. And so keep him in your prayers and stuff. So again, I apologize that I'm all over the place, and so hopefully next week I'll be better and be calmed down. And finally, the other question that people were asking was the unemployment rate. How could we lose 125,000 jobs, but the unemployment rate go down? Well, it's because how we look at it. And if people stop looking for jobs, then they no longer count. You have to be actively looking for a job to count. And right now, even though the unemployment rate is dropped, we're almost 8 million jobs less than we had in 2007. And so it's really frustrating. But we also have almost 9 million people who are working part-time. The federal government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, says part-time is anywhere from 1 hour to 34 hours. So if you have 1 million people working 5 hours, they're not counted as unemployed. And so it makes the numbers look really good. So again, we can play with this and we can mess up the numbers. And so 5 more minutes, huh? I know. What we're going to do is we're going to end this show early. I'm not going to, I'm mumbling and I'm not going to fill in the airtime right now. And again, I apologize, but I got other things on my mind today. So again, I want to thank both Rick and Beth for being here. And hopefully your information will be worthwhile. I know the public wants to know about the airport. And again, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Refreshments provided by G. Housen Distributors. Premium beverages delivered.